Hello everyone, I'm home. I want to welcome you to what I think will probably be the longest video that I've ever had. I've got a little bit of a scratchy voice, so I may have to stop and start a few times, but this is a beautiful morning. It's real toasty and warm in the house, and I've been sitting in my chair with my books and my notepad by the fire, looking out and enjoying what ended up being a beautiful morning. It's just a real light snow. It's really cold. I guess tomorrow is going to be even colder. But I'm sitting here I do this every morning, just sit here and think about how grateful I am for my life and the things I get to do. And I just wanted to share some things with you guys that I found in the last video. I rewatched that and saw that I called this Santa a snowman in the lantern. And then when I was telling about Kim Swaney's beautiful little snowman head that she made me on this spring that bobbles, and it's primitive and she does such a great job, I called it a Santa head. And I watched the video 2 or 3 times before I posted it, and I didn't catch it. And then at the end of that picture I said, I love my little snowman head. So if you see me do things like that, just realize I'm like everyone else. I make mistakes, but I really hate it when I work so hard to make my videos right and I look at them and they're like that. So I'm going to show you some pictures of my past videos, and I encourage you to go back and look if you're a new member or a new follower, I guess I should say, and look at some of my old videos of the many buildings that I made and a lot of the Christmas decor. And one of the videos I would really like for you to watch if you're new to my channel is the one called Getting to Know My Channel, and it'll give you an idea of what my channel's about. So if this is the kind of content you don't care for, you won't even bother to watch, because I want people to watch that really draw inspiration from what I do, or at least enjoy looking at the things I do. I am so fortunate. I'm sitting here making notes and telling myself what I didn't like about my videos of the past year and a half, and trying to figure out, what I want to do in the future. I have the big EP project coming up. You guys know what that is, and I'm tweaking the last little few things on it, and I want to show you that around Christmas time as a gift. But I'm trying to come up with new ideas, and I've got some new ideas for the channel. I want it to go in a little bit different direction. But one of the things I want to do, and I thought I would start today, is answering a couple of your questions. I have like 32 questions now in my Instagram and Facebook page that you all have asked. And I thought I would address a couple of questions in every video, or maybe one every now and then, just to kind of catch up, because I think a one-time video would be kind of long. So the first question I'm going to answer is, someone asked, do you work outside of the home? Yes and no. I work all the time. I'm always thrifting and flipping and selling things and making things and selling things online. So that's one job that I have, and I have to go out to do some of that, to thrift. And I clean one house for a friend of mine. It's a lady that I had in the beauty shop as a client for many years, and she called me one day and said, could you help me out? I just need somebody I trust. I don't know very many people that clean houses, and I need somebody to just come in and do a little clean about once a month. So once a month I go in. She's got a small house, and it's very clean and it's very easy, and I like to do it because I want to help her, but it's exercise and it gets me energetic to come home and clean my own house real good, and I love to do it. The other question I had was, why doesn't your husband help you with all these projects you do, especially the wood projects? Well, the answer to that is, my husband came from a family of carpenters. His dad was a carpenter and a roofer, and his brothers and they all worked in that business. But that's not his passion. He did it with his dad, and he liked to paint. They painted as well, and that was his forte. So he painted for years and years while he was working at the school as a teacher and coach. He also painted, and then he painted long after that, after he retired. But his passion is not building. Now, his brothers could build anything, and they did. But my passion is making things and building, and he will help me. If I say, hey, come out here and do this or that, he'll do it, and he's happy to help me. But he also knows that I like to do things by myself, and I like to do things, I just like to get things done by myself. So enough of all that. I'm going to start sharing with you this week's video, which is about the second, this is part 2 of the $2 bag sale that I went to, and some other things. Now, it's all fun and games when the guy at the produce mart says, here's a big bag of little pumpkins and gourds for you, because I'm not going to be able to sell all of these. It's real fun when that happens until you have to get rid of them. So I didn't want to get rid of them, but I put them around my kitchen. I piled them all up on the stove, and I put them in a bag. And I'm going to try to dry them out and get the seeds and plant all of these. So hopefully next year I'll have enough pumpkins I won't have to go buy any, and I can share them with my friends and family, because when they come over they're always like, oh, I love all those pumpkins, and I had baskets of them sitting around. So I gave a lot of them away. This is just what I had left. And then I was looking at some of them and thinking, I took the stems off for future little pumpkin heads that I make primitive, and I put them in the bag and put them in the garage. And then I thought, you know what, I can't get rid of these. Some of them are so cute. And the little white ones, I mean, they don't scream fall, I don't think. So I put them in the garage, and they're going to freeze up, and I'll open them up and maybe throw them out next to the barn so that they rot and go into the ground and start growing. But some of them I'll collect the seeds. But this little white one, I set him on my onion stand and thought, well, he doesn't look fall-like. He looks kind of Christmassy, right? He's got some red berries lying beside him. So I had him out, and I first thought he looks kind of like the little Cinderella pumpkins, and then I realized Cinderella has nothing to do with Christmas. But this little guy here, he's just a little vanilla-colored pumpkin or gourd. I found out that some of these little tiny pumpkins are actually gourds, and you can dry them as well and keep them, and the seeds dry inside. But it's not illegal. So my mom used to say, if it's not illegal, so, and then you enjoy it, and I enjoy these little pumpkins. So I set another little Cinderella looking pumpkin on a little bowl, and it didn't look too good. So I went and found all my little berries, and I thought maybe if I add a few berries to it, it'll look more Christmassy, and I think it does. These are the berries that I got off of a tree down the road that's full of these berries, and they're just beautiful, but they look better when they dry out and get kind of burgundy looking and older looking. I really like them. I think they're poisonous, but like I said before, we don't have any kids or dogs, no animals in the house, and they're put up, but I don't know if they're meant to be brought inside. And then I stuck a little Santa, want to make sure I didn't call him a snowman, next to it, and I think it looks pretty. I'm going to leave it out for a while. I don't know. I like pumpkins and gourds, I guess. I didn't realize I liked the little gourds as much as I do, but I put those in some bowls around the kitchen as well. Then I'm going out to the garage to put the pumpkins out, and I saw on the side of my hall tree this thing sticking out, and the hall tree arm of the bench has been loose, and I was trying to glue it, and it's the screw coming loose. It came almost all the way out. So I tightened it up, but I think it's stripped. So there's another project for me. I'm going to have to put some wood filler in there and re-screw that together so that the arm doesn't wiggle. And I can't believe I hadn't noticed that. And while I'm out in the garage, I saw this little cabinet that I bought recently at Salvation Army, and I hadn't showed it to you guys. And shown it to you guys. Says, see, there's a mistake. I don't like that when I make those kinds of mistakes, and I'm not going to edit that out, but I don't like it. So I'm in the Salvation Army, and this lady says, I can't believe you're not buying this little cabinet. I hadn't found anything. And I said, well, I immediately thought of my miniature furniture that I make to put in it. And she said, it's only $9.99. So I bought it, and when I went to pay for it, another girl checked me out, and she only charged me $5 and some change. And I said, hey, I think that's $9.99. And she said, well, today furniture's half off. And I wouldn't consider this furniture. It's a small childlike cabinet, I guess. It's a little curio cabinet, probably 16 inches tall. But it's got all the shelves. I just have to reattach them and put a little stopper on the door because it doesn't shut well. But it's beautiful, and for $5, it's really going to showcase my little miniature furniture. And I'll probably set it up against the wall on my desk, because I try to hang those little cabinets on the wall that hold my miniatures, but this one's a little heavy. So I was real happy with that. And like you know, it doesn't take much to make me happy, especially if it's thrifted. And I'll probably put a coat of varnish on it, and I may even make new shelves. Those are kind of cheap looking. So this little Santa came out of my Santa box with all my little ones, and he's about 14 inches tall, and he didn't look good with all the little ones. So I set him over on my cabinet where all my white ironstone and my crystal compote dishes are. And I'm looking at my books. I know I've showed you this before, but this is an easy way to have a vintage looking Christmas book or Easter book or Halloween, anything you want. I took one of my old postcards and I printed it like a 5x7 image or something that would fit the book. And I get old books that are discarded by libraries and they're not great anymore, but you don't really compromise the book by putting these pictures on the front. You can still read the title on the spine, and you can still read the book. But I tear the picture on the paper, on the copy paper, so that it's kind of ragged around the edges. And then sometimes I'll make a little sign that one says, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas." And then I put a little grunging technique on them and make them look older, and that's a good way to have vintage looking books if you don't have any. I look for them at thrift stores and they're hard to find. Now I was looking through my box and I forgot to show you this one. I may have shown it last year, but I forgot all about it. So this isn't a little golden book, but it's Merry Christmas, Mr. Snowman. And I thought the images on the front were really pretty, kind of vintage looking. And then I noticed, I couldn't tell how old it was, but I saw someone gave 39 cents for it, so it had to have been pretty old. Sometimes you'll see barcodes on books, even though they look old, they have barcodes. And I thought this one had the prettiest images. And from the images, I'm thinking maybe late 60s, early 70s is when this book was. I didn't look inside to see. I should have checked that. But it's an old vintage book, and sometimes I'll just open the book and lay the book open so you can see the images. And then, of course, I found my Christmas in the Little House, which is a Laura Ingalls Wilder book. I have several of those books that she wrote, and they're really nice to sit down and read. This one's short, and it tells about Christmas in the little house, and you can just visualize all of it. And sometimes when I was a little kid, I used to wish that I lived back in like the Gunsmoke times with Matt Dillon and Miss Kitty, and I used to think that's the era I want to live in. And I know it wouldn't have been easy, and they had it harder than we do now, but in a way, yeah, I think it would have been easier. I don't know. I wouldn't have liked all that dust. But I like the era of the Waltons and Little House on the Prairie. I know it's a lot of work, but I'll tell you a story one of these days about when I felt like Ma Ingalls out on the prairie. It's a cute little story that happened to me, and I enjoyed it. But anyway, I sat down and read this book, and then the little book behind it's called The Christmas Bird Story. It's a real old book. And then if you're looking for Christmas magazines and you don't want to spend a lot, and you just want to narrow it down to one or two because they're expensive. They're $14 and $15 now. Christmas Cottage is always good. All the cottage ones are great. They don't have a lot of ads and they've got a lot of content. Country Cottage Christmas is good. I don't know if these are all made by the same company, but they're all really timeless books. I mean, you can keep this magazine for 10 years and it'll still be good. And then, of course, Victoria, which I've been with from the beginning. And Victoria is the most beautiful magazine I've ever seen. And it's the cheapest. It's like, I've seen it for $10.99, $12.99. But when a magazine's $14 and $15, I want to tell you what the good ones are so you don't go out and spend on those others. And then for an inexpensive little decoration for any room in your house, I just took this. I don't know if it was a die-cut Santa or off of a card. I cut him out and I put him on white or black poster board and put him in a thrifted frame, and that's sitting in my bathroom. And then this is probably a postcard or Christmas card I got a few years back, and I just cut it and put it in a little thrifted frame, and it's sitting in our hallway bathroom. And I just kind of tucked it in back behind this little 1-foot Christmas tree with a rose on a little spring. And it's just a nice little Christmas touch that isn't expensive. And then last year I showed you that I take my Christmas cards and I cut out the pretty images on them and I make tags. I don't like those little sticky tags that are they're small, you can't hardly write on them, you can't read them very good. I like to have a big tag. You know how I like to make my tags. So I made these last year, and not only is it economical, but you can see the tag. It doesn't get lost on the package, it doesn't get buried under a bow, and you're recycling and you get to re-enjoy the card. This is one that my friend that passed away recently gave me last Christmas, and I get to use it again. And I've even been known to use sticky tape, like white packaging tape on the back, and cover up the names and use it again the next year. Then I bought this big, you guys saw this once that I put on here, a big hurricane. It was red. It was real heavy, and it's been cut to clear, and it's really pretty. And when I took all my fall glass out of the front room window, I put it in the window with a battery operated candle, and it's just beautiful. It's real pretty in the daytime with the sun shining in on the red glass, and then it's real pretty at night. These kind of things just give your home a special touch and a warm feeling. And of course I thrift everything, and I got that great big hurricane for I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look, but it wasn't very much at all. And it's just beautiful. It's real heavy too. It's about 12 inches tall. And then I thought I'd show you the little plastic globe that came off of a chandelier, I suppose. I got it at my friend Margie's flea market for 50 cents. And it's plastic, but it's so beautiful. It's real heavy. I mean, you have to touch it to know it's not glass. And I put a candle in it that's kind of like a candy corn candle. It's got orange at the bottom, yellow in the middle, and white at the top. And it just looks so beautiful. And I'm getting ready to put it away with all my fall stuff. And I wanted to show you guys how pretty it was. And I imagine that globe was on a chandelier at one time with maybe 4 or 5 others. And that was the only one left. And then my sleigh that I made last year, and I had set it on my rustic table on the porch with a Santa in it. It was a wooden Santa and some little packages. Well, this year I decided to set it on one of my tables. And this is on my kitchen table, which it can't stay there because it takes up almost the whole table. But I was going to show you how you can decorate it. I put some greens in it and pine cones and fruit and some berries and some ribbons. And these are the little magnets that my uncle makes for my store. So if you have a country style home, you can have primitive looking magnets. And then I stuck a little copper jello mold in it. And my friend that just passed away, she used to always have a bowl on her table with pretty little copper things in it. And then these little bells, I found these bells, I think at 2 different times. I have 2 of them that say 2000 on them, and that's the year our twins were born. So I tucked one of those in there. This is kind of like last year when I had that little chair and I decorated it a bunch of different ways so you could see what all you could do with a little chair at Christmas time. So that's what I did. I spent a few minutes just going around the house and decorating it different to show you different ways you can do things. And then I put this little book. I got this at the Covered Bridge Festival last year, but I also have a little book that I wrote for my boys when they were little, full of little poems and Christmas stories, and I've used that image on my little books. And I thought that was this book, but it's one that I bought at the Covered Bridge. And then little birds. They look pretty. I pick those up when I'm thrifting because they always sell real cheap, and I just love to have a little bird sitting around. I think they're just so precious. I'm kind of scared of birds in real life, but I like these kind. And then these are little mittens I made several years ago out of old sweaters, and it's an ornament that hangs on the tree, but I just put it in there to see what it would look like. And I told my husband to eat the apples and the oranges that were in there so none of them would rot. That's a terrible thing when they rot. Some of these aren't real. Some of these that's a picture of my mother-in-law. So you can tuck little vintage pictures in. That looks pretty, and it kind of brings them into your Christmas celebrations. And there's fruit there that's not real. The yellow pear down at the bottom, and one of the green apples are not real. These are roses out of my garden. You know how I dry all my roses, and I have them all over the house. I have so many of them. They just will not fall apart. And I think they're beautiful with their old vintage look. So I tuck some of those in with the greenery. Those aren't going to stay because they're kind of delicate, and I keep those in vases. And then just different things, you can have, I hope people get this from my videos, that you can have anything you want in life, especially if you thrift, because you can find everything thrifted. But like this old spoon, it's just an old vintage tarnished spoon that I think is beautiful. I picked it up somewhere at a thrift store for probably 50 cents, and it looks pretty in there. My friend, I keep saying my friend that passed away, I don't want to mention her name because it just breaks my heart to even talk about it, but or you can just put a simple candy cane. I put these I made these years ago. They're just Chanel, and I antiqued them. But she always had a big wooden bowl on her kitchen table full of stuff. And I would say, I'm stealing your idea. I'm going home right now and fill my bowl with something different. So all these little trinkety things that I buy sometimes end up in the wooden bowls. And these are the little candles from the Dollar Tree. Now, I told you before, they don't smell like peppermint like they say they're supposed to. And the other one's the green one's supposed to smell like a Christmas tree. But these little candles burn forever. I've been burning that little candle for a long time, and it's still good. So it's well worth $1.25 to pick up these pretty little red and green candles. I think they have cream-colored ones too, but I think the red and green are so pretty for Christmas. So yeah, I wanted to show you my little sleigh and my little Santa that I made out of a porcelain doll. And I'm so happy with it. And I think that the fruit, even the fake fruit, looks good in it. I have a lot of stone fruit, plastic. As long as it looks real, I'll pick them up at the thrift stores because I really like them. And like I said, that green apple's not real, and that pear in the back is not real. And the pine cones, I did go foraging some pine cones the other day and dried them out in the oven. And I have several old pine cones. And I wanted to share this with you. I went to Joann Fabrics the other day looking for some realistic looking greenery because I usually forage most of my greenery. We live next to an old Christmas tree farm, and there's a lot of trees. We live by the woods. I can get greenery, but I'm getting older and this cold gets to me. So I found these little bunches of what I thought was pretty realistic looking greenery. And you guys aren't going to believe this, but it was buy one bunch of greenery and get 3 free. I couldn't believe it. I only spent about $11 and I got a whole tote full of greenery. And then I put a hook on the side of my little crock bench that I made. You know me, I have to overdo it. I ended up putting hooks on that, and I put a hook on the side of my pie safe and hung a little sprig of greenery there. But I don't know, greenery dries out. I like to have real in the house. And then I'll take like the wax melts that smell like balsam fir or pine, and I will rub the little wax melt on the plastic of this greenery or whatever they're made out of, and they smell good. Or you can put them in a paper sack and tie it up real good and put some of those wax melts inside, and it'll take on the smell of the pine scent. And this is a little wreath that they had. You buy one and you got 3 free, or they were 60% off. I think it evens out either way, but 60% off was really good, and had little rusty looking bells on it. Well, they're not really rusty, but I can make them look rusty with some cinnamon and coffee, but I like the way these look. They're kind of tarnished. And I rubbed the wax on it, and they smell like greenery. And like I said, they're not real, but they're real enough for me to keep me from having to go out in the cold and get more greenery. And then last year, some of my greenery dried out so bad by the time Christmas got here, and that it was falling all over the floor, and it was bad. So the big old red basket that I got at Restore recently that I was so tickled about, I put some old books in it, and it's sitting on a stack of, I don't know what they are, boxes on the floor right by the back door, and I stuck one of the little sprigs of greenery in it, and I decided that's where I was going to put my little gifts for people who stop by. I like to keep a little basket of gifts, and I decided to put them by the back door this year instead of the front door, and I wrapped them up in brown paper sack and put some ribbon and the little greenery on them. I was in the grocery store, and this young kid that was sacking my groceries, I said, "Could you give me one paper bag?" And he said, "Really?" He said, he had to dig for them. He said, nobody wants those. They all want plastic. And I said, well, I'd like to have one. So he put some of my bread and stuff in a brown paper sack, and I just wrapped everything with that. And I've already given one of them away. They're just little like soaps and candies and wax melts and just something that I think almost anybody would like. And then if an unexpected guest stops by, you've got a little gift to give them around Christmas time. And I glued some of my little rosebuds. I've got a whole jar of those little rosebuds that I dried off of my rose bushes towards the end of fall. I couldn't just let them go. I had to pick them and dry them. And then I had some pine cones and some of that fake greenery, and I tucked it in my baskets. I'm going to put all that greenery in a big tote this year, and just next year have me a tote of greenery, and I won't have to go out and get so much. But I just wanted you guys to know, if you have a Joann Fabrics in your area, you should hit it up, because they've got a tremendous sale going on right now. And then the $2 bag sale, let's go. I want to show you some more from it. I saw this vase, and I knew instantly that it was quality. It was old. It was in good shape. I think the flowers were painted on at least 100 years ago, because I have some cranberry glass and some other dishes that have this same hand painting on them, and they're very, very old. They were my great-grandma's. It was black glass. It was about a little over a foot tall, maybe 14 inches tall, and it had a beautiful base on it, and it was heavy, and I knew I was going to get it because I knew it would be $5 or less. And the base was a little bit different than the rest of it. It's not glass. But I could feel the quality. It was good. It was too good to pass up, even though it's not really something that goes with my decor. I knew it was worth something. This is the store where the ladies quit working there, and it's a bunch of young guys. And it was 50 cents. And I think orange was on sale that day, so it was a quarter, but it could have been just 50 cents. It didn't matter. It was perfect. So someone has put some paper on the bottom, and you can tell it's really old paper. You can't hardly read the words. And it's just fabulous. And for 50 cents, I couldn't pass that up. And I brought it home, cleaned it up, and the gold is rubbing away around the top, which is normal for a piece this old. And I'm going to put roses in it. I've got a white rose bush. I think I'll put the white roses in it this year. And there was a sticker on the side that was from a yard sale, and it had been tried to rub off, and I think it said $2 or $3. But I looked them up, and if you can find a set, they're worth about $120. And I saw one set was selling for $195, but they hadn't gotten any bids on it yet. So I think it was well worth 50 cents or a quarter, and I'm real happy with it. Now, this is before I cleaned it up, and when I cleaned it up, it was beautiful. And you got to be really careful with the hand painting. You don't want to scrub it. But I gently washed it, and it turned out real pretty. And I think that you guys have to learn to notice that kind of thing. Age and quality. And the vintageness of it is just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. And you know how much I thrift. So I saw this little piece of fabric, and I picked it up and threw it in my cart. And when I turned it over, it was actually a little quilt. And it said on the tag, handmade doll quilt. Well, I have a lot of little antique doll beds. Many of them that I've made, many of them that I've thrifted. And I make quilts for them, and I antique them. I grunge them up. And I have a whole pile of these little quilts, you can imagine. But for $1, I couldn't pass it up. Someone worked really hard on that. And they had already grunged it up, and it had a little tag on it that said it came from the Tattered Rabbit, and a lady named Marilyn made it. And it's just precious. And I thought, well, for $1, I'm going to take that, because someone worked hard to make that little quilt. And I'll put it on one of my little doll beds. And it had been $5 at the Tattered Rabbit and marked down to $2. Patchwork doll quilt, hand sewed. So it's in my collection of little doll quilts. I have one doll quilt that's antique, and I have many that look antique because I've made them to look that way. And they had put this little puffed heart on it, and I don't care for that at all, and I'm going to take that off. I'll probably use that for a Christmas decoration, but I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to either fold this up on one of my little doll beds, or if it fits one, I'll put it on there. And that was at the Mission in Danville, Illinois. But It wasn't on bag sale. Okay, let me get this straight. The black vase was at the $2 bag sale, but this was at the Mission. And I'm just tickled with it. It's just the cutest little doll quilt, and it's about 12 inches by 10 inches. And I have all sizes of doll beds. And yes, I go down there and I change them and I move different quilts to different beds, and I have fun with it. And then I found this big thing. I have one of these in my store, and I think it's a rug, but it could be a tablecloth. But I think it's a rug because it's huge. It's about 3 foot by 4 foot, and it's 2 layers of real heavy fabric that is just gorgeous. And the one I have in my shop is burgundy on one side and the other side's gold. This one is gold on both sides with a pattern on one side, fringe all the way around. I laid it on my dining room table and it fit perfect, but if I wanted to take it off real quick, it's like, I bet it weighs 5 pounds. And I think I'm going to use it, well, I'm going to use it on my desk as a tablecloth on my desk because I have a gold blotter and I think it'll look pretty. But I was originally going to use it as a rug on my office floor, which it looks good that way too. But it's real heavy. It was on the $2 bag sale, and the bag that they give you is like a 13-gallon trash bag. And I folded it up and I put it in that bag. Now this is the gold on the other side. It was clean. It was pristine. It's just perfect. And it's just beautiful. And I don't know what they are. They're real heavy. I'm telling you that. A big heavy piece of gold, a big heavy piece of printed gold, and fringe all the way around. And it's huge. So if any of you know what they are, I don't know. I don't know what they are. But the one out in my shop I'm using for a tablecloth. And it's just gorgeous too. And I thrifted it. So this one was basically free because I got it at the $2 bag sale. And we had so much fun at that sale, Ronnie and I. He was finding things for his girlfriend. I was helping him find what he wanted for her. And I was finding stuff for myself. Like this cut crystal little, it's about 6 inches tall, rose bowl. I have several rose bowls and they're bigger than these, but this one was cut crystal. And a lot of mine are just pressed glass. I have a few crystal ones. And I thought it was just beautiful. That's before I cleaned it. This is after I cleaned it and I put some of my old dried roses in it. But I can't wait till I get to the grocery store and buy some real roses to put in it because I use them for rose bowls on my dresser, on my nightstand, in the bathroom, just about anywhere. And I wrap this real gentle up in that big gold thing that I don't know what it is, and very gently carried my bag out to the car. Ronnie had a bag that was so big and heavy, my husband had to help him carry it because he got cookbooks for her. And I found this cruet, my friend that just passed away, she collected cruets, and I always picked them up for her. And I have several. I have my grandma's and my great aunts. And so I decided to get this in memory of her, and it was on bag day, so it was like nothing. And a lot of times I would get her cruets that didn't have tops on them, the stoppers, because some of hers didn't have stoppers. I would just get them and give her the stopper. But this one had the stopper. It didn't have any wear. There's a little bit of wear on the handle, but it's probably 100 years old, so that's normal. So in memory of her, I got this one for me. And I brought it home, and I usually take a baby bottle brush or a toothbrush. I use the bottle brush inside it, and then I use a toothbrush and some vinegar and Dawn soap and gently scrub down in all those grooves, and it turned out so beautiful. I think I have about 8 cruets now. I have 3 big Victorian ones, and then I have little ones. And she had a collection of about 25, and it just made me think of her, and I just love it. And the stopper is beautiful. It's got some real nice indents in it, and it's just really pretty. So I cleaned it all up, and I'll set it on my shelf with all my others. But for right now, I just kind of set it around the kitchen in different places to just enjoy the beauty of it because it's really pretty. And now sometimes I'll put a dish soap in them, like for green or red for Christmas, and you've seen me do it with the orange for fall. And when I bought her last one, she did that. She put some dish soap in hers. And then I found this basket at the $2 bag sale. It's a vintage looking basket. It's not really old, but it's an egg basket, and it's brown and kind of a grayish black. But like I said, I can age them But I tucked this one onto my Christmas tree down towards the bottom, and it's real pretty. And it'll be old someday. And then I found 3 of these. Someone had made them and hand painted the little Christmas trees and put a real nice heavy wire hook on it. And there were 2 gold ones, and one was a darker green with Christmas trees that had snow on them. And I was real happy to get those. Just threw them in my bag for $2. And I got so much stuff, guys. I'm going to have to make 3 videos to show you all the stuff that I got. And then I found a Christmas apron, and it looks to be handmade, and it's very vintage. And it's got a little pocket with little embroidery around the edge. It's just so sweet. And I have a lot of aprons, and this one's kind of big, so I'll probably use it. I use my aprons. I wipe my hands on them, and they get stuff all over them, especially if I'm doing something with flour. I'll use an apron. But I got to looking at this one, and I think they have the fabric upside down. It looks like the bells are ringing upside down. I don't know. I may be wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's so pretty. And I put it in my collection, and one of these days I have a friend who just told me his mom collects aprons, so I'm going to have to package some up and send them because I have so many. But my friend Debbie, she makes aprons, and she's made me some, and she made me one out of one of my dad's old shirts. And I've made some, I bought some, I thrift them all the time, and I have a lot. But Christmas vintage aprons make me happy. Then I found this book. It was, I guess, like paper dolls. You cut out the pictures of dollhouse furniture, and you fold it and use the little tabs and make your dollhouse furniture. I don't think I would put this kind of dollhouse furniture in any of my miniature scenes, but I threw it in my bag because it was interesting. And you can see here how you cut out the pictures and fold the tabs. But I thought, I bet some little girl would really enjoy doing that. It would be pretty easy to do. And here's what the little wicker chair looks like with the pillow, cardboard square pillow in it. And it would be fun for a little kid. But the reason I really enjoyed this book, and I will use it, is because they had floor patterns, like hardwood floor patterns. They had rugs that you could cut out. And I've used a lot of paper rugs, fabric ones, cardboard, and put images on them. And these are the images that were in this book. I can use that on a floor because especially when you take pictures of miniatures, if you have a lot of stuff on the floor, like when I do my little antique stores, and I've cut out pictures out of magazines of carpets and rugs and put on the floor. When you're looking at it from a distance, you can't tell that it's not a real rug because it's really hard to get the right thickness for a rug for a dollhouse. Some people will use yarn and felt and stuff like that, and it's just a real carpet. I hate it when people use real carpet because it's way too thick for a dollhouse. So these are pretty, and to touch them, they're just like paper, but if you look at that, it looks like fabric, nylon loops or whatever. So I'm going to enjoy looking through that book. And then I found a Warren Kimball book. He was an American folk artist that most of you probably all heard of. And I had this book at one time, and I think I gave it to a friend who collected Warren Kimball. But if I still have it, I've got 2. I'll have to ask her if she got that one. But it's a really good book, and it tells all about him, and it shows a lot of his things. I was at a yard sale one day, and I found a beautiful little red desk, and they didn't want hardly anything for it. And I bought it, brought it home, cleaned it up, and when I opened the drawer, there was a big metal tag inside, screwed inside the drawer, and it said Warren Kimball, and it told the year it was made and everything. And I bet that thing cost a fortune when the person bought it. And I have it downstairs in my primitive room, and I love it. Okay, I found this book. Ronnie was buying his girlfriend cookbooks, and he didn't want this one. He said, no, she doesn't want that one. It was Farmhouse Rules by Nancy Fuller, and she's on the Food Network, and I watch her a lot, and she's really good. And I like her because she makes things that I make. She doesn't have a lot of wild recipes. And I saw this tuna macaroni salad, which is one of our favorites, and I wanted to see how she made hers, and it's a little different than mine, but I'm going to try it. But what I liked about her book was all the recipes were things that I would make. It was just her version of everything that we make. I don't like it when I buy a book and I get in it and everything's some crazy recipe that I would never do. And there's a lot of pictures of her farm and family pictures of her and her family and friends and a lot of entertaining ideas. And it's just a beautiful book. And I looked all of these books up on thriftedbooks.com, and I don't like it when I say I'm sorry, I don't like that. Amazon, you can get them on there. And you know how I like to set them on my easel on my counter. She's going to sit there for a while. The Nancy Fuller Farmhouse Rules book. It's a very thick book and it's very good. And then I pulled down this book right before Thanksgiving because I wanted to see how they made pumpkin pie back in the old days, how they did their yeast rolls. I just sat one evening before Thanksgiving and read through it. And it was a beautiful book. And I didn't get a picture of it. I don't know why I didn't put that in here, but there were some leaves that had been pressed in this book, and they were beautiful. And it's just an old book that is very interesting. They talk about a pinch of this and a pinch of that. But it said it was from the Department of Home Economics. And I thought of Mrs. Crone, our home ec teacher. I loved her so much, and she taught me a lot of things. That a lot of times when I'm cooking, I'll think, okay, put your egg in your mixing bowl or in your measuring cup and stir it around before you put your lard or your butter in, and it won't stick. She taught us how to do that. She taught us a lot. And then I found this book on the bag sale, The Glory of Southern Cooking, and you talk about some great recipes. There are some wonderful ones in this book. And I'll be honest with you, I picked the book because it was orange. I love fall colors. And it had a beautiful spine with gold lettering. I looked it up. You can still find it. It's an older book. And I looked through it before Thanksgiving and saw how they did their pumpkin pies. And I'll be honest with you, I pick books sometimes just for their look so that they'll look good on my shelf with all my other books. But I do read them and look through them. But this one was kind of like the Martha Stewart big orange book that I got recently. Looks good on my shelf. And then you see Holly Taylor's cookbook from Grandma's Table. And it's always on my shelf. I've got 2 of those, so now I've got them on 2 bookshelves. But I like my books, and I do read them, and I do use them, and they're great. Now, my friend that just passed away, this is her window in her family room. And that little book is a book that I wrote for my boys several years ago when they were little. It's got Christmas stories and Christmas poems. But I gave Rosie a copy, and she always has it on her window as you came in the door. And this is what I want to talk to you guys about. This little lamb that's a chocolate mold. She had a collection of these things that just made my mouth water. I loved them. They were all over her kitchen. And I would say, oh, I just love these chocolate molds. And she said, well, I thrifted most of them, and I bought a few at antique stores. Now, this one's a reproduction, but she had a lot of antique ones as well. And she said, you can find them out in the wild. And I said, I know, but I'm not going to start another collection. I just can't. I just don't need another collection. Well, I would go to her house and she would have them in bowls. These are little mini chocolate molds, like a snowman and a Santa Claus and an angel. And she would have them in the bowls with some greenery and some berries. And I'd say, I'm going home. I'm going to copy you, but I don't have any of those. And she was always trying to give me some, but I wouldn't take them because they looked so great in her collection. She'd been collecting them for years and years. So I'm always in her kitchen, walking around, looking at all of her chocolate molds, especially at Christmas because she had Santa Claus ones, and they were so beautiful. So I kept telling myself, you're not going to start that collection. Just enjoy her collection and get over it because you're not starting that. You've got all these Santa Clauses. You've got too much stuff. No. And they're expensive. And this was one of my favorite ones that she had. It was a miniature one, and it opened up, and you could put chocolate in it and actually make a little chocolate of that face. And she would put that in her wooden bowl, and I would just go up there. Her and I were on the same decorating page. We loved the same things. If I liked it, she liked it, vice versa. And it was always easy to buy her a gift, and she always bought me great gifts. Well, this little guy here he was just special to both of us. We loved him. And she would always put him there in that little bowl. So I'm in the Goodwill one day, and the Goodwill they all have an aisle of metal stuff. And the metal aisle's not my favorite. It's usually cookie sheets and teapots, and unless I find copper or some tarnished silver, I don't really like it. They have a lot of, there I go saying again. Guys, that's my New Year's resolution. I'm not going to say all the time. I'm going to try not to do that in my videos. I've got to make these videos better. I looked down that aisle and I saw nothing but I'm sorry, I had to cough. I had to shut this off. I saw this on the shelf, a beautiful textured Christmas tree chocolate mold. I about flipped. I couldn't believe it, and I walked up to it and held it in my hands and turned it over, and it said 99 cents. Guys, I about flipped. I'm serious. I looked on the bottom, and it said RAZ was the name of the company, so it's obviously a reproduction. And I looked it up when I got home, and they sold them like at Neiman Marcus, Macy's, places like that. And they're reproductions, so they're just for decor, but they are beautiful, and they're heavy, and they're silver, and they're just tarnished perfectly. And it looked like her collection, and I had one finally. So I picked that Christmas tree up, and I put it in my cart, and I thought, I'm out of here. I've got my bargain for the week or a month or a year. I'm so happy. So I looked on their shelves, and they had a few little things. They always have wine racks and stuff. And I thought, I'm just going to get out of here. And all of a sudden, this thing was standing in front of me. A Santa Claus one. I could not believe it. And I thought, oh, well, Santa's not going to be 99 cents. It doesn't matter. I'm buying him. But I turned him over, and he was 99 cents as well. I thought, oh, these young kids that are marking this stuff don't know what they're doing. And he was just as pretty on the back side as he was on the front. Now, the thing about these is they don't come apart. They have little screws on them, but they're like solid. They won't come apart, and you can't use them for a chocolate mold. But they are so beautiful, and I'm not starting a collection. I am not. But I have a Santa Claus and a Christmas tree, chocolate mold, sitting on my pie safe, and I am in love. Guys, you know it doesn't take much to make me happy. I love my thrifted life, and I love having all the things I want to have because I thrift, and these things make me really happy. And unfortunately, my friend didn't live long enough for me to show her that I finally got 2 pieces. But anyway, my next big thing is this. My grandma had this tree when I was a little girl, a little pom-pom aluminum Christmas tree. And when she died, my dad was an only child, and we went to Ohio to get her stuff, and we had 2 truckloads we brought back, and she had a house full of wonderful old stuff. And I was the only one that wanted the old stuff. Dad didn't want it. Mom didn't want it. They were kind of complaining that I wanted it all. Dad was going to give all of her stuff to her church for a donation, and that was great. But I wanted Grandma's stuff, so I brought a ton of stuff home. I was 18 years old. And I don't know what happened, but we didn't find this tree. It was back in a closet somewhere in a little box, and we just didn't I got into that closet, and I remember there was like fans and flashlights and old coats and stuff, and I didn't dig back far enough, and I didn't get the tree. So I've thought about it for years. I have a picture of my brother and I sitting in front of it, and I couldn't find it to show you guys. But I have a lot of Grandma's vintage ornaments, and I've collected a lot, so I put those on it. But one of my girlfriends had this tree, and one day I said to her, I just took a chance. I said, if you ever want to sell that tree, I'd buy it. Those are really pricey, and I can't find one I can afford. She said, you want that ugly thing? She said, you can have it. She said, I hate that tree. I said, oh, you do not? And she said, no, I don't like that tree. It's falling apart. It's in terrible shape. And she said, you can have it. She said, it's little, and it's in bad shape. You probably you'll throw it away yourself. I said, no, I won't. So she gave it to me, and I did give her some money. I made her take some money for it, and I told her this year I will give her another tree in place of it, which she doesn't want, but I'm going to do it anyway. This is the box that came in. It's a 4-foot Christmas tree. I could not find a date anywhere on it, but guys, I'm thinking I'm thinking late 50s, early 60s. It's got all the paper sleeves that you put each branch into. They're looking pretty bad, but it's old. And she told me that she got it at her neighbor's rummage sale many, many years ago, and she said it was in bad shape when I got it at the yard sale. Well, I knew the lady she bought it from. I did her hair for years and years, so that even means more to me that I knew both of them. And it has this little $2.59 written on the box. I wouldn't have thought back then they would have written the price on like that, but maybe they did. You would think there would be a tag, but that's on there. And then there's also the little rummage sale sticker that says $2, and that F is the last name of the lady that lived next door to her that had the yard sale that I did her hair for years. So I'm just over the moon. And her husband brought me the tree the very next day. She took it down and boxed it up, and he brought it to me. And I said, I'll get you guys a tree, and I want to give you some money. And he's like, really? Are you kidding me? This thing's falling apart, Marcy. You're gonna want to throw that box away. I said, oh no, I got to keep the box and all the sleeves. So I decorated it all up, and I set it in my office in front of my front window, and it's wonky. Someone has put a new pole in the middle, and it's wonky. It just is. But to me, it's just precious. And I wired all the ornaments on so none of them would fall off, and I put a vintage Christmas card at the bottom that was given to me by my great aunt, who was my grandma's sister, and put some old ornaments around it. I think pink ornaments look good on these kinds of trees. Any shiny ornament looks good on them, but the pink ones are really pretty. So I go into, well, it didn't have the light that went under it. I've looked at them online, and they're so pricey. I know you can buy new ones, but I wanted a light to shine underneath it. And I got to thinking about my boys when they were little. I had bought them a little plastic light at the Dollar Tree that just lit up and spun around, and it shined on your walls and everything. And now that little ornament at the top there is one that I had when I was a little girl at my grandma's house, and that was my special ornament to put on the tree every year. And this blue one in the back that says Silent Night, that was my brother's. Now, I have a lot of old ornaments, but I only have a couple that were the original to our family. So I dug out this light. I found it in one of the boys' closets, and I thought, well, I don't even know if it would still work. So I put some batteries in it, and I put it under the tree, and it was daytime, and I lit it up, and it lit that tree up in the daytime. But when I lit it up at night, guys, it was fantastic. When you first light it up or turn it on, it turns like a blue color, and then it turns to green, and then it turns to like red and purple, and then it goes back to green again. It goes through that process like 2 times, and then after it's gone through that process 2 times of just flashing one solid color, then it starts spinning and throwing all kinds of colors out. All the colors kind of meld together. I mean, for a dollar at the Dollar Tree, it's wild. So I turned it on at night, and guys, this thing went crazy. It was like a discotheque in my office. I was laughing so hard. I told my husband, I said, come here, you're not going to believe this, how it's lighting up this tree. This is what it looked like when it first turned on. It just shined like a bluish green, and then it went crazy. I wasn't quite ready for what it was going to do, but for not having a color wheel, this thing is going to work. Like I said, it started off like the blue-green, then it went to red, and went through the whole cycle 2 or 3 times, and then all of a sudden, it went crazy. The lights flashed all over this tree, and it seemed to climb up the tree the faster that the light went, and then there were like fireworks all over the ceiling and walls. It just went crazy. So here I am in my pajamas, and I put my boots on, and I ran outside in the snow to see it from the outside. And from the outside, guys, it looked just like there was just a color wheel underneath it. And everybody's going to think Marcy's got a color wheel underneath her vintage aluminum Christmas tree, and I couldn't be happier. You talk about taking me back in time to Grandma's Christmas tree. I am there. I can almost smell her house. And I just feel the joy of my brother and I sitting around that tree out on her sun porch, looking at it with that color wheel going. I'm in love. So I haphazardly threw my bed together this morning, and those pillows on the back are the original shams that I leave on all the time, and I thought I'd take those off for Christmas, but when I got it all put together and used the cream color sided, they looked fine. And this is a little hint of what's coming up on another video, and I'm going to show you some more stuff from the bag sale. There's just so much to show you. I want to thank you guys so much for putting up with me and this long video that was kind of wild and all kinds of different stuff going on. I love you guys so much, and I'm thinking about this last year and a half when I started my channel and wondering if I would even be here in 2 months, and let alone a year and a half. And I'm still here, and I'm still giving you content, and I have so much stuff to show you guys. It just kind of blows my mind, because every time I do something, then I come up with another idea and think, oh, I got to show those guys. So you can follow me on Instagram at MarcyJo631, and I'll give you little hints of what's coming up. I might even start posting when a video is going to come out. And most of you hit the bell up at the top, and you know when the video is coming out. And I would really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, because it's making my channel grow, and maybe share with your friends if they like this kind of content. I am sitting here this morning with my notepad, and my whole page is full of ideas and things that I want to share with you guys. And believe me, I show you a lot, but I never run out of ideas. I'm talking to my husband this morning about some things I wanted to tell you guys, and he's like, you better write it down, because he knows I forget. But I have plenty to show you in the next year, and we are going to have so much fun. And as always, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss a video. And please know that I love you guys from the bottom of my heart, and I can't wait for our next visit.